We all think we know the Bible's opening chapter, right? 7 days, light, land, sea, the whole deal. But what if that story, that super familiar story, isn't just about how the world got made? What if, hidden right there in plain sight, it's actually a blueprint for, well, for justice?
See, that question changes everything. It totally reframes Genesis 1. It stops being a story about divine manufacturing and turns into a story about divine governance. And as we're about to see, this blueprint for a well-ordered world doesn't just hang out in chapter 1. Nope, it ripples through the entire biblical narrative, shaping how we think about everything from economics to leadership.
All right, so the creation story isn't just God making a bunch of stuff. It's really about God bringing order out of chaos. The narrative actually presents this as the construction of a cosmic temple, this perfectly ordered space. And this isn't about just, being neat and tidy. It's about laying the foundation for a world that can actually truly thrive.
But we're not just talking about physical order, like arranging furniture in a room. The Bible gives this divine order an ethical name. It's a moral structure. It's a vision for the right way everything should connect and work together.
And that brings us to these two huge Hebrew concepts, tzedakah and mishpat. Think of them as two sides of the very same coin. Tzedakah, or righteousness, is the proactive side. It's about building a world full of generous, right relationships. Then you have mishpat, or justice, which is more reactive. It's about stepping in to restore fairness and balance whenever that beautiful order gets broken.
And believe me, this is not some minor theme tucked away in a corner. The Psalms shout it from the rooftops. Righteousness and justice are the very foundation of God's rule. So this goes way beyond just personal piety. We're talking about the fundamental structure of reality itself. According to the text, this is just how the universe is supposed to be run.
The prophet Isaiah uses this just devastating wordplay to show what happens when this order gets violated. God looks for mishpat, justice, but instead finds misapach, bloodshed. He looks for tezekah, righteousness, and instead hears it tseakah, the outcry of the oppressed. That poetic link is the whole point. When justice breaks down, the result is real, raw human suffering. It's an outcry that echoes all the way back to the Creator.
Okay, so if that's God's cosmic blueprint, what about us? Where do we humans fit into this whole picture? Well, it turns out we have a very, very specific job to do.
We tend to think of being made in the image of God as some kind of special status, like a piece of cosmic bling we get to wear. But the biblical authors frame it as something way more active. It's not about what you are, it's all about what you do. It's a vocation, a job description.
And what is that job exactly? To act as God's representatives here on earth. To manage creation using that original blueprint. And that means defending the vulnerable, caring for the poor, and holding up this whole order of righteousness and justice. Like the book of Proverbs puts it, oppressing the poor isn't just some social oopsie. It's a direct insult to their maker. It's a fundamental failure to do the job you were given.
So we've got the blueprint. We've got the job description. But let's be real. How do you train an entire nation to live this way? Especially when our basic human instinct is so often to hoard and protect what we think is ours. Well, the biblical story introduces what you could call a training program, designed to build a totally different instinct.
It's like a three-part lesson in trust and fairness. First up, the Sabbath. That's where you learn to let go, to release control, to trust that the world won't fall apart if you stop producing for just one day. Step 2, the manna story. That's the training ground for not hoarding resources. And finally, the Jubilee year. That takes both of those lessons and applies them to the entire economy, releasing debts, land, and even people. It was designed to be this recurring national economic reset button.
And that manna principle is just so key. In the wilderness story, right, the people who gathered a whole lot didn't have any extra. And the people who gathered just a little, they still had enough. It was a system built entirely on equity, not on accumulation. It's a direct challenge to that drive to build up surpluses for ourselves, which of course always leads to scarcity for others.
So there's the blueprint, there's the human job, there's the training program. But what happens when a society just ignores all of it? What are the actual consequences of rejecting the Creator's design for justice?
Well, the result is catastrophic. For the biblical prophets, injustice isn't just a category of bad behavior. They describe it as a cosmic force that literally starts to unwind the very fabric of creation itself. Just listen to this chilling description from the prophet Jeremiah. As he's mourning the nation's injustice, he uses the exact same language from Genesis 1, but backwards, formless and void, no light. For the prophets, injustice is nothing less than anti-creation. It's choosing to go back to chaos.
And you can see this conflict play out perfectly in the competing models for leadership. The biblical vision for a king was one of limited accumulation and actively defending the poor. It's a stewardship model. But the model that the people kept copying from their neighbors was all about extraction, hoarding wealth and power by crushing the very people a leader was supposed to be protecting.
So the world is broken. The blueprint's been ignored. Creation is unraveling. The biblical story has reached this major crisis point. It desperately needs someone who can finally come in and restore that original, just order.
And this is where Jesus enters the picture. Now, the key thing to get here is that he doesn't show up to abolish the old blueprint. He comes to embody it, to intensify it, to call people back to its core logic. He is the perfect image of God, finally doing the job the way it was always meant to be done.
I mean, just look at his most famous teachings, like the Beatitudes. These aren't just sweet little platitudes, they are declarations of a great re-leveling. The blessed ones are the poor, the meek, the hungry, the very people pushed to the margins by broken systems. When Jesus says the meek will inherit the land, that's pure Jubilee theology. And the goal isn't spite. It's about re-leveling the playing field so that true community can finally happen again.
And this brings us to the core thesis of this whole idea. Justice isn't just a nice thought or a political program. Within this biblical way of thinking, it's the very grammar of creation, applied to how we live together. It's taking the logic of Genesis, ordering and filling for abundant life, and using that same logic to structure our economies, our power, and our relationships.
So how in the world could this ancient blueprint be applied today? Well, here are 4 kind of diagnostic questions. In our budgets, are we planning for manna margins so we can give and others can have enough? At our jobs, are the systems fair? Are they transparent? Do they share success? In our lives, is our power used for service or is it used for extraction? And in our weekly rhythm, are we actually practicing Sabbath to unhook ourselves from that constant anxiety of hoarding?
And this leaves us with one final and pretty challenging thought. We are all authors, right? We are constantly writing the story of our society, with our choices, with our systems, with our values. So if justice truly is the grammar of a well-ordered world, the question we have to ask ourselves is this: what kind of world are we writing?